G'day gamers, this is Yummy Cheese Man, and today we're doing the EU Power Rankings as of August 2020, which was just after the first ever regional for EU, as well as the first ever grid, and before the second grid tournament gets ran. Just for context of where we are right now, for those who haven't seen my Power Rankings before, I typically do something very focused on actual matches, you know, who versus who, rather than the overall ranking. I find that tends to be a little bit more indicative of the actual power, because you can have people make a long run through a tournament and not face, I guess, some of the more difficult teams or some of the teams that were red hot, and other people get eliminated first round by the team that goes on to win it all. In terms of how I've given importance to these tournaments, RLCS is the most recent and has a large prize pool, very high importance. That's clearly number one. The grid, even though it's a smaller prize pool, it only just happened a few days ago, and the Summer Grand Prix was the last previous, I guess, major tournament that happened. I do have the Euro Cup and Spring Series there, being, you know, up to three months old for the Spring Series. Obviously a very big prize pool for it, so still some import, but for the most part I completely ignored Euro Cup and Spring Series, and I have 100% ignored the field, but I've put the results in there just so that you guys can see how the teams are kind of trending towards the future. Number one is Vitality, Alpha 54, Fairy Peak, and Kaydop. Very clear, consistent team. The only team out of everybody in this top 10 that have consistently come in the top 8 over and over and over again through all their results. They had a poor performance in the grid, and normally I would not let excuses ride, but Alpha was sick, considering how they've come third, second, first in pretty much every other showing that they have. I think you can give them that leeway and say that really did affect them. So a lot of the Vitality results in the grid I also ignore. They are the clear number one. They were the favorites to take it on the weekend, but BDS had a massive day. Just as a note, they've only lost 8 series over the last 3 months, and only lost 1 series in RLCS. Similar to team number 2, BDS only lost 1 series to team Magnifico. Had a fantastic run. I thought they were the only team that would be able to upset Vitality. I didn't expect that to actually happen. They really shut down what Vitality wanted to do. Didn't seem that Vitality could play the way that they wanted, and it was all because of the pressure put on by BDS. I also really liked how Monkey Moon played up against Vitality's defense, where Vitality likes to stack the net quite a lot in defense. Monkey Moon was slowing the ball in front of it. He got past that defense really cleverly, outplayed defenders, and got it past all 3 at certain stages. Marked by 8 obviously having huge tournament, Extra having the time of his life, finally showing some huge success. Another almost all French team, with both Monkey Moon and Extra being French. And yeah, well, they're just dominating the top of Rocket League right now. As you can see as well, in the Summer Grand Prix, they also had a really solid result in the last major. Probably not a huge surprise. They won Euro Cup, and their pretty much only poor performance of recent times has been the grid, where they lost to Vitality, who are the number 1 team, and lost to Triple Trouble, who were on fire that day and didn't lose a single series. Number 3 is top Blokes, Archie, Flame, and Kassio. Archie starting up as the first player on that roster, the new player on that roster, and being a huge addition in the playoffs. He was absolutely incredible. Probably the best player of the playoffs from an individual perspective. He was a major factor of them getting that second place. And in fact, against Magnifico, he was saving it over and over again and then leading it to a goal. And against BDS, he still had a really good performance, just couldn't quite get over the line. But they had a really good RLCS as well. Their Summer Grand Prix was okay, but I think they're a team really trending on the up and really getting better. They are number 3. don't think they're going to stay up here too long. I've said this in the past. I think the regionals are going to get tougher, especially with the likes of Oxygen and Liquid probably making it into the top 16. A lot of new teams or teams with a single new player take a different amount of times to really ramp up. And so you're likely to see other teams figure out how they've played under pressure in the first regional and improve off that. That being said, top blokes, all they have to do is keep improving themselves and they will maintain this position. Number 4 is Oxygen. Obviously, 17th place, 17th/18th place in RLCSX, and losing to Stormtroopers, Giants, Magnifico, not losing to the likes of Vitality and BDS and some of these top teams we've already seen, really, really looks bad on their record. And I wouldn't excuse you if you put these guys lower, and I could see you putting them higher. I've just put, I guess, a lot of emphasis on this RLCSX result, because in the Summer Grand Prix, they came second. In the grid, they came second. They won Fusion. They've had these big results. Even in the grid, they almost took the win over Triple Trouble. And in the Summer Grand Prix, they were one step away from taking down Vitality as well. It was a Game 7 after having beaten them in the bracket reset match, or the first match of the bracket reset. So Oxygen, I'm fully expecting them to come back, bounce back, and achieve, a top 8 placing minimum. They are a team that I could say vie for first. So you're certainly expecting a lot more than what we got in terms of not even making it top 16. Comparing them to Liquid, you have to say it's way more disappointing for the team that was coming in maybe as the second seed, or as the second seed into that tournament. So hopefully they can turn that around. Another thing to know for Oxygen, coming 16th, 17th, alongside Liquid, is that their points are going to be really low. So there is a lot more pressure riding on them in the next 2 regionals to perform even better. It's not just about making top 8. It might be about making top 4, even top 2 to get those extra major points. Number 5 was Guild. I don't think these guys haven't been too consistent, but they've had a couple of really solid performances. Summer Grand Prix being one of them, where they took down FCB, Dignitas, Top Blokes, and they had a close match with FCB loss, and they lost to Vitality, which I think is pretty excusable. In RLCSX, they had a massive, massive Stage 2, where they came first. Only just scraped into Stage 2, but once they got there, they looked a lot better, and they're here in this number 5 spot. They could be anywhere from number 5 to maybe number 9 right now. And I gave them the number 5 just from their Summer Grand Prix performance, and because they have the 3-0 against our number 6 Dignitas. So Dignitas, they've been consistent, I'd say. Consistently middle of the pack, unfortunately. Summer Grand Prix, 7th and 8th. They lost to Vitality there as well, so some excuse. Lost to Oxygen in the grid. Which is, it was an Oxygen that ended up coming second. And they lost to BDS and Vitality in RLCSX. So we didn't truly get proof in the pudding of how they could perform. And a lot of their wins here with Endpoint, Magnifico, Stormtroopers, Triple Trouble, and Singularity, they're not winning against anyone above them either. So I certainly just need to see a few more results from them. They could climb up. And they're a team that I think is going to be reminiscent of when they played with Aztral. It looks like they're going to go down the same path, especially with Joreuz being, a mechanically gifted youngster like Aztral was. And if you remember the early days of Dignitas, they struggled. They ended up coming out 5th or 6th in league play in that season. And then by the time they got to Worlds, they ended up in 3rd place. And they were a clear top 3 team at that Worlds. And since then, they had a lot of confidence. Lost Aztral. I think they're rebuilding. By the time they get to the 2nd or 3rd regional, they're not going to be vying for top 8. They're going to be looking at that top 4, top 2 mark, and maybe even towards that top 1, winning one of the next regionals. Number 7, Triple Trouble, and pretty substandard RLCSX. Obviously, they made it into the top 16, which is really good. They only really had 2 major wins over people that would be in power rankings contention. They obviously had a lot more wins than what's listed here, but you know, Liquid and Stormtroopers were their major scouts, and their losses to BDS and Dignitas probably not what they were looking for after the fact that they got a first place in the grid, and that's what put them up here in 7th place. You could put them higher if you really value or don't value RLCSX over grid. You could put them lower if you really value RLCSX results. But in the grid, they were dominant. They beat everyone. It was a Game 7 against Oxygen, but that is Oxygen, who are up there ranked number 4, and you certainly can't hold it against them. I think the nice thing about Triple Trouble is that, you know, they didn't even get to play in Eurocup Fusion Spring Series. They didn't qualify for all these tournaments. They weren't invited into the Summer Grand Prix. Instead, and then all of a sudden they've come out of nowhere and started putting on good performance. Even a 6th place currently in the field after 1 week, 7 days of competition means that they're probably not fluking this, and we're going to see a little bit more coming out, or similar results coming out from Triple Trouble in the future. Number 8, Giants, a team that I'm a real fan of, and a team that, you know, deserve to be in the top 8. I think they're consistently showing that they are worthy of the top 8. Really miserable result in the last major tournament in the Summer Grand Prix, unfortunately, but a 3rd/4th in the grid over the top of, you know, maybe a flailing Vitality, but also a Liquid who had started off strong and took down Dignitas on that day. And in RLCSX, they had some really solid results. 2 of their 4 losses were to On Fire BDS, and they took BDS to 5 games both times. Very similar playstyle to BDS, and couldn't make it happen in that playoff. So we might have seen a very different top 8 in the end had they taken down BDS on that final day. Number 9 is Magnifico, maybe granted a little bit of favor by the fact that they aren't in the grid and they haven't been a team for long enough for any of the previous ones, or maybe it's a disfavor. If we saw some more results out of these guys, I think we could actually probably get these, get the boys higher. Atomic Dmentza, really fun to watch. So's Greasy as he returns from retirement. So it's kind of like 1 pro and 2 highly mechanical, you know, fairly new to RLCS players. Most notably, they took down BDS in Stage 2. That was their big victory here. I'm expecting these guys to continue to put on results. I don't think this was a fluke, as much as it felt like it the entire way. Everyone felt that they were the underdog. I'm thinking we're going to see some more consistent results. It's just whether they can make that top 8 repeatedly, because now that they have that top 4 result, I think a top 8 from both the next 2 will get them into the major. Finally, we're at a spot where I think there were 4 teams, Solary, Liquid, Barca, and Endpoint, that I all switched into this position multiple times. This was really difficult to decide. I ended up just slightly edging Solary because they made it into the top 8 in RLCSX. You know, maybe not big victories in the teams in RLCSX, but also 2 of their losses were to Vitality, and then Top Blokes as the final loss, who ended up running on to go 2nd and did have a big day themselves. So Solary ended up picking that up. Of course, you know, some miserable results in the future, or similar 13th to 16th in the grid will throw them out of the top 10 very quickly. But some good results could obviously rise them up as well. That is the top 10, and hopefully you all enjoyed that. I'm going to be doing more power rankings every couple of weeks. Probably do OCE. I might do an NA one next week, depending on how much of NA I get to cover this weekend. And then I'm back to EU in the next 4 weeks. Next time I'll hopefully get a guest on stream to discuss their own rankings as well, and that'll be on my Twitch, which I'll put down below. Also, if you want to see a weekly power rankings of NA and EU, I know Lawler's doing that, so I'm going to leave a link to his channel down there. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.